Welcome to Racket Fanatic podcast, Tales of a Tennis Legend. Every week I'll be telling a story about the best tennis players to have ever played the game. In this series we're talking about a personal favourite of mine, Andre Agassi, and this is episode 2, what the Bollettieri Tennis Academy was really like. I wanted to tell this story really because it gives a bit of an insight into what tennis academies are really like. I'm sure things have changed and evolved and got better over the decades, but for sure, this is a good indication of how they were originally, and it's just very different to, I guess, how it's painted or how it's advertised. When I was growing up, when I was playing tennis, academies like Bollettieri's Academy and other academies like that were just so prestigious. In my mind, and many tennis players' mind, it was the ultimate academy to go to. And when you hear players like Agassi go to these types of academies, you think it's all roses. You think it's absolutely amazing, and you think these academies just produce amazing players and best way to become a professional tennis player. But with Agassi's point of view, it just paints a bit of a different story. So I'll start at the beginning of how he found out that he was going to the academy. So he first went to the academy at 13, and how it sprung upon him, his father saw an episode of 60 Minutes, and this particular episode was about a tennis school in Florida near Tampa Bay, the first school of its kind, and it was a form of boot camp for young tennis players, and it's run by a former paratrooper named Nick Bollettieri. And Agassi's response is, okay, so his dad's response is, well, you go in there. And, again, there is a bit of logic behind this. Agassi's the youngest of four, so he has three older siblings. And his father doesn't want to repeat the same mistakes he made with his older siblings. They are a tennis family, and what Andre says here, he doesn't want to repeat the mistakes he made with my siblings. He ruined their games by holding on too long, too tight, and in the process he ruined his relationships with them. Things got so bad with Rita that she's recently run off with Pancho Gonzalez, the tennis legend, who's at least 30 years her senior. My father doesn't want to limit me or break me or ruin me, so he's banishing me. He's sending me away, partly to protect me from himself. So his father's theory about hitting thousands and thousands of tennis balls with a ball machine at an early age is, I guess it's a theory that's been repeated. You hear the 10,000 hours story, and there is logic, and it's definitely right. But I think it sounds like, from Andre's point of view, the dad held on to onto his siblings too long, and obviously didn't have the technical expertise to get them to that next stage. And like Andre says, while also holding on to them too long, he's also ruined the relationship with them. And just reading through the book, it really gets quite nasty. He calls the other kids losers, and Andre's like the golden boy, but the way his father speaks to his siblings is really quite horrible, really. So he doesn't want to repeat the same mistake with Andre. So he's at the age of 13. Andre's beat everybody in Vegas, everyone in the West of America. The logical answer now is send him to a tennis academy to try and, I guess, hand him to someone that supposedly knows more and can take him to that next level to be world number one. That's what his dad has in mind for him, to be the best player in the world. What is quite funny, his mother says it wasn't actually an episode about the episode in 60 Minutes wasn't about how great this tennis academy is and it's the first school of its kind. It was actually, the episode was about how it's a tennis sweatshop that employed child labour. I guess over the years it's become iconic, this academy, but at the time maybe it wasn't it wasn't seen as such a iconic type of thing. It was maybe a different, yeah, it seemed like there was a different take on the idea. Initially, Andre goes for 3 months, so it is expensive. It's $12,000 a year, I believe. and Andre goes for 3 months. So it's $3,000 in the early 80s, which was a lot of money then. The family doesn't have much money. His dad just works in the casino and they mainly survive off tips. And his mother works in an administrative government type role. So they have, it seems like they have enough to live, but really it seems quite on the breadline. And Andrew mentions many times that they survive on tips that the father receives. They think, right, let's just send him and we'll figure out how to put together or make this 3,000 for the 3 months that Andrew goes. They see Andrew as the investment and golden child. So he goes to the academy, and in his mind, he thinks, okay, he's recently been on a tour of Australia where he played for the US as a top junior. So in his mind, he's thinking, okay, this could be another great adventure. I won't be home. I won't be away from home that long, away from his friends, or he really gets on with his older brother, Philly, quite well, very well, in fact. And he thinks, okay, this could be a fun trip. He gets there, and it's not like that at all. People like to call the Bollettieri Academy a boot camp, but it's really a glorified prison camp, and not all that glorified. We eat gruel, beige meats, and gelatinous stews and grey slop poured over rice, and sleep in rickety bunks that line the plywood walls of our military-style barracks. We rise at dawn and go to bed soon after dinner. We rarely leave, and we have scant contact with the outside world. Like most prisoners, we do nothing but sleep and work. It doesn't it doesn't sound like the glamorous academies you see today. The constant pressure, the cutthroat competition, the total lack of adult supervision, it slowly turns us into animals. A kind of jungle law prevails. It's Karate Kid with rackets, Lord of the Flies with forehands. One night, two boys get into an argument in the barracks, a white boy and an Asian boy. The white boy uses a racial slur, then walks out. For a full hour, the Asian boy stands in the middle of the barracks, stretching, shaking out his legs and arms, rolling his neck. He runs through a progression of judo moves, then carefully, methodically tapes his ankles. When the white boy returns, the Asian boy spins, whipsaws his leg through the air, and unleashes a kick that shatters the white boy's jaw. The shocking part is that neither boy gets expelled, which greatly adds to the overall sense of anarchy. Another two boys have a low-grade, long-running feud. It's mostly taunts, teases, minor stuff, until one boy ups the ante. For days he urinates and defecates into a bucket. Then, late one night, he bursts into the other boy's barracks and dumps the bucket on his head. The jungle feeling, the constant threat of violence and ambush is reinforced. I mean, that is just crazy. What? It just seems like kids completely out of control. Just very little adult supervision, along with that competitive nature against each other. You're in a tennis academy competing against each other. It seems like Nick is a tough love character. So in many ways, maybe he encourages that fighting, that battling. I don't know, but I don't think you get away with that today. I'm almost sure you wouldn't get away with that today. So it's probably a little bit a sign of the times as well. But how ridiculous. What a wild place to be. We're back in the room, and just before lights out, by the sound of drums in the distance, I asked one of the boys, "What the hell is that?" "Oh, that's just Courier. He likes a pounder drum set his parents sent him." "Who?" "Jim Courier." I love that introduction to Jim Courier. So anyone that knows tennis knows Jim Courier was also an amazing player at the time that Andrew was playing. And it's really cool to think that they were in the academy at the same time, and they both gone on to have amazing careers. But I love how this is the introduction of Jim as this rogue kid pounding a drum set in the background of this prison style academy. Within days, I get my first glimpse of the warden, founder and owner of the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy. He's 50 something but looks 250 because tanning is one of his obsessions, along with tennis and getting married. He's got 5 or 6 ex-wives. No one is quite sure. I love this book. It's really funny. It's really quite clever with the humour. A boy tells me it's our job to keep Nick's 4 sports cars washed and polished. I asked some of the older boys, some of the veterans about Nick, Who is he? What makes him tick? They say he's a hustler, a guy who makes a very nice living off tennis, but he doesn't love the game or even know it all that well. So I thought that was really interesting because, of course, since he's had since he had Andre linked to his academy, it's been one of the most known and sought after tennis academies in the world. But after reading about Nick Bollettieri, he doesn't have a tennis background. He wasn't a player. He wasn't a pro. So the concept he's come up with is amazing. Of this tennis academy where kids board and train for half the day and the other half school, or even train for most of the day and a few hours a day do school, and that's been replicated all over the world. But I know Nick was the first to do that, and a lot of for the most part, the academies that do that, they're founded by ex pros that are known, like Sergi Bruguera Academy, Rafael Nadal Academy, Juan Carlos Ferrero Academy. They're all well known players, but Bollettieri was not like that at all. He just, I guess, had an idea and saw an opportunity and went for it. And it was actually an old tomato farm that he turned into the campus, obviously filled with tennis courts. So it's really entrepreneurial. It's an amazing story. But the fact that it's come from really a non-tennis player is even more fascinating. So of course, if the main thing is to promote his tennis academy, he needs stars, doesn't he? He needs people like Andre. And reading about this, it seems even at this time, Andre was head and shoulders above a lot of the kids. I mean, he's there at the age of 13, and ages go from 7 years to 19, the age of the students. But Andre is still is really shining head and shoulders above a lot of the kids. There's an example when they go to a tournament, and for their age group, for each age group, every kid gets knocked out, apart from Andre, who wins the tournament. So it just shows how much better he is, and how exceptional he was at even a young age. And just to show how good he was at a young age, Nick didn't actually see him play until a few weeks in to at the academy. So he's initially supposed to stay there for 3 months for $3,000. After a few weeks of playing at the academy, one of the coaches kind of spots and watches Andre and goes, "Has Nick seen you play yet?" And Andrew's like, "No." A few moments later, the coach runs off, announces Andre Agassi to Nick's office on the tannoy. Andre doesn't really know what it's about, runs to the office and proceeds to ask Andre a series of questions. What's your ranking? What does your father do? What does your mother do? And if they're available to talk. So he gets his father's number and gives him a call, and then on the spot offers Andre a scholarship. Nick says he's the best tennis player to have ever come through his academy. Andre's father's response is, "I don't have the money." Nick almost laughs and pushes that comment aside. He'll give him a full scholarship so he can stay at the academy for free. So that just highlights how exceptional Andre was. It is funny because the way Andre sees that is almost like he's been sentenced, given a life sentence at jail. Nick hands up and spins toward me in his chair. He doesn't explain, he doesn't console, he doesn't ask if this is what I want. He doesn't say a thing besides, "Go back out to the courts. The warden has added several years to my sentence, and there's nothing to be done but pick up my hammer and return to the rock pile." So obviously Andre's not too happy about that, but, you know, it's probably the best thing that could have happened to him, to be the person he is today. So his experience at Bollettieri Academy is quite mixed, really. Of course, his father ran a very tight ship while he was at home. And now he has the freedom, but also he's a tennis star. So he has he's almost given special rights. So this is where he starts to rebel. And this is where we see the young Agassi with the cut off jeans when he's playing. He has a mohawk, a pink mohawk at one time. He has earrings. This is his way to rebel. Living with loads of kids in a dorm, they all, I guess, it's too many kids. too little adult supervision. They're all doing outside of the tennis and school, kind of whatever they want. They're away from their parents. So they're just pushing boundaries, aren't they? And then Andre's pushing it the most because he probably feels like got this newfound freedom away from home, and he's not happy about being away from home in this academy. He explains that and mentions that multiple times, and he's in many ways, and he's actually allowed to get away with this because he's the superstar. He even mentions at school him and I think any of the Bollettieri kids, they kind of passed even without doing homework because the school that they were going to, Brereton Academy, Bollettieri was essentially funding that. He's all the school fees that he's getting from parents is propping up this school, which means the tennis kids are passing basically. But it does get to a point where Nick's had enough. The tournament where I mentioned he wins and all the other kids are knocked out, he wins the final with a pink mohawk, cut off jeans. He's even grown his nails. He's even grown his nails. He's got earrings, and of course, this is in a different time as well when this really wasn't, for a kid to be doing. It was really, he was really being a rebel. So Nick pulls him at the end of the tournament, and when they all get back to the academy, he pulls all the kids together, and Nick begins to explain about how prestigious the academy is and how you need to appreciate that you've got this opportunity and how you need to respect the academy. And then he singles out Andre and begins to really humiliate him about his behaviour in this final. And to be fair, his behaviour outside of this, his time at the academy, his rebellion is more than just his appearance. He's drinking, he's smoking. It seems like any boundary he's pushing because he just doesn't want to be there. He doesn't like tennis anyway, but it seems he's not doing well at school, so he actually seems to enjoy tennis part of his day more. But it's just the fact that he's there and away from home, along with the newfound freedom. He's just not enjoying the time here. So he does rebel and push the boundaries and goes past the line for sure. So Nick proceeds to humiliate in front of all the other kids and says, right, I'm going to punish you for a few weeks. You're going to be picking weeds, scrubbing toilets, that kind of army style punishment. And this is where Andre kind of comes to the point where, okay, I just want to go home. And he actually packs his bags, and he's thinking about, right, how can I hitchhike back from this academy in Florida back to Vegas. But on his way out, he gets gripped by one of the coaches from having this new punishment. Andre hates Nick even more. I think he didn't like Nick at the beginning just because of really what he stood for. Like, he didn't want to be there. But now, along with being punished and having his freedom taken away, he really just didn't want to be there and didn't like Nick at all. And he actually decides to take a vow of silence where he doesn't actually talk to Nick, like the silent treatment. So, when he's training, Nick might say the odd word, like a bit of encouragement or coaching, and Andre doesn't respond and just really tries to completely shut Nick out of his life and just get on with in his words, his sentence at the academy. Actually, where the narrative changes, Andre and his friend Perry, who actually got into the academy in the most ridiculous way. Nick is always on the hunt for superstars because he can attach them to the academy. That adds credibility to his academy. So Andre tells him that his friend Perry is this amazing talent and he always struggles to beat him. Perry's not a good tennis player at all, but still Nick invites him to the academy to showcase him in a tournament that they hold at the Bollettieri Academy. Obviously he loses, but Andre gets to see his friend. But it actually works out quite well. So him and Perry hang out, and I think they go to like a local fair or something, and they end up winning this massive panda. So they end up playing a game where you have to toss like a ring onto a Coca-Cola bottle or something, and they end up winning a panda. It's like human-sized panda. And on the way back, this little girl spots the panda And they humour her. She really likes it, and then they go back to the academy. Now, not too long after, Nick calls Andre into the office, and then Nick mentions that I believe you won a panda. Andre's thinking, well, how did he know? So the little girl happened to be Nick's daughter. So Nick's looking to buy the panda off Andre. At which point he's still doing the silent treatment. So Nick is like, okay, I'll leave you to think about it, about buying the panda. And that's where Andre has a chat with his friend Perry, and Perry gives him some wise words about what to do with this situation, to use it to his advantage, really. The advice that Perry gives is that he can use this to bargain. He can use the panda as a bargaining chip. So what Perry's advice is that give Nick the panda, keep you don't have, he doesn't have to give you any money, but in exchange for this, Andre can get wild cards into different pro tournaments. He doesn't have to go to school anymore because for the most part he's failing it. He doesn't enjoy it. He doesn't enjoy the commute there. On Describes it as an old smelly bus. He doesn't enjoy that part of it, of his life whatsoever. So he just wants to do correspondence school and get out of the academy as quick as possible. And the only way they see that happening is by going pro and getting on tour, really. They add some other things in, like better food and other things like that. Agassi goes back to Nick and explains what he wants. Nick's like, okay, let me think about it. But of course, he adheres to it. And from then on, Andre doesn't have to go to school. He actually goes to correspondence school, and his mum does the work for him. His mum was like, if you don't get a degree, so be it. But I'm not having my son not graduate from high school. So she does it for him. So he now has this extra time to train. So he can really dedicate 100% of his time to tennis. Even the rest of the kids are off to school in the morning, and I guess he's just training. So he's got a full day training on tennis. He's getting wildcards to tournaments. So his path to world number one has just been accelerated, which is what they both want, really. It's what Nick wants, and it's what Andre wanted to get out of the tennis academy. And from that point, their relationship got a lot better. And they, in Andre's eyes, were no longer enemies. They were now friends, I guess, on the same journey. I think Nick respected Andre for speaking up, defending himself, and of course, making the point that he wanted to focus more on his tennis. And from then on, with Andre having more freedom and being able to focus on his tennis, and having Nick as a sounding board, he doesn't necessarily describe him as a coach. He describes him more of a sounding board. But at least he has that support from Nick to progress his career and go on to tour. And that's where I leave it for today on Tales of a Tennis Legend on Racket Fanatic podcast. See you next week.